Chris Hamblin, your ArizonaSports.com college basketball insider, back with you for another edition of College Hoops Coast to Coast. And a really big week in hoops. You've got number 1 and number 2 both going down. And the number 1 team in the country lost in a pretty dramatic fashion on the road at Indiana. A buzzer beater beats Kentucky. Kentucky loses their first game of the season, and Indiana is still undefeated. First, let's look at this from a Kentucky perspective. I think they needed to lose a game like this early in the season because this is a team. Look what John Calipari has put together. They're young, and adversity makes you stronger. And this type of adversity, a game that Kentucky had in hand really late, and this is going to make them grow together as a team. And these situations they can learn from. They're not going to have many of them in SEC play, but Indiana gave them one that they will be a better team for down the road. Now, real quickly, Indiana and Tom Crean, program that has been in flux. People were asking whether or not Tom Crean's the right guy for the Indiana job. I think he's proving that he is the right guy. A nice foundation-building, program-building win for the Hoosiers. Number 2 team in the country goes down. Ohio State loses at Kansas without their big man, Jared Sullinger. It was disappointing because that was the matchup we featured last week on the games to watch. It was Kansas's big man, Thomas Robinson, Ohio State's big man, Jared Sullinger. None of that happened. Thomas Robinson dominates in the paint. Kansas's defense too much for Ohio State, and they go and they win easily at Allen Fieldhouse. Quick note from that game, talked to people in Lawrence. They said that's the loudest they have ever heard. Allen Fieldhouse, one of the most dynamic venues in all of college basketball. So number 1 and number 2 lose. We have a new number 1 inside of college basketball. The Syracuse Orange are number 1. They're going to be number 1 for a while. They won't be tested until January 7th when they play Marquette. Moving on now to the Twitter question of the week. And man, talk about a polarizing topic for college basketball. Dude, the brawl between Xavier and Cincinnati, if you haven't seen it, check out this footage. This is a guy getting clocked in the face during a college basketball game. Now, the Twitter question of the week is whether or not the suspensions handed down from this brawl were enough. Number 34 is Yancey Gates. He's the guy that bloodies the Xavier forward's face. He was suspended 6 games. He got 6 games for that. He should have been done for the entire year. So clearly, that's not a suspension that is long enough for his actions. I played college basketball, much like baseball. You have unwritten rules. Here's the unwritten rule. Don't knock a guy out in the face. Pretty simple, right? Easy to follow? Well, he didn't follow it, and there has to be a message sent here by the administration. More than 6 games. They didn't do it. That's a problem for me. I think they should have done much, much more. So not just Yancey Gates, but the players, especially Xavier's team, had some really disturbing comments post-game in the heat of the moment. I do think this. College basketball doesn't have a rampant problem with this, but in a rivalry like that, the officials needed to figure out a way to take control because they had none of it down at the end of a blowout that Xavier won. Moving along now to the games to watch this weekend. I gave you 2 good ones last week. Hang with me here. I'll give you the reasons to watch these 2. Number 19, Illinois, will play UNLV. That's the same UNLV team that beat North Carolina earlier this season. They've lost to Wisconsin and Wichita State since beating the Tar Heels when they were number 1, but they'll be the first real test that Bruce Weber's Illinois squad will face this year. Second game to watch, Rick Pitino and the number 4 Louisville Cardinals will take on Memphis, another team up inside the top 10 being tested for the first time. Now, Pitino's teams are really fun to watch this year. They get up and down the court. They play really strong, intense defense. And in transition, they're one of the best teams that I've witnessed this season, seeing them play. And I'm looking forward to seeing them take on Josh Pastner and Memphis, who has really underachieved. Remember, they lost 2 games in overtime in Maui, and since then, they have not been able to get themselves together or going. All right, big week in college basketball. We'll be back with you here at ArizonaSports.com next week to take you around the country and go college hoops coast to coast. Join us then. I'm Chris Hamblin of ArizonaSports.com, right here, your college basketball insider.